Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, How to Unlock Productivity Through Employee Experience. My name is Emilia Johannesson and I will be your moderator today. I work on the marketing team here at the Fujitsu ServiceNow practice and I'm excited to be introducing you to this session today. In this webinar, we will show you how you can leverage your existing ServiceNow investment with our partner HappySignals. Today's speakers will be Pasi Nikkanen from HappySignals and our own Hannes Hirvikalio from the Fujitsu ServiceNow practice. Before I hand the word over to Hannes, I have a few practicalities I would like to cover. The webinar is scheduled to last for about 1 hour with a 10 minutes Q&A session in the end. You will all be muted throughout the webinar to avoid any interruptions. If you want to ask questions, please submit these by using the section called Questions in the menu on your right side of the screen. We will do as many questions as possible within the time frame in the end. If your question is not answered, we will contact you with the answer after the webinar has ended. Within the next days, you will receive an email with the slides and a recording of this presentation. Please enjoy the session as I hand over the word to Hannes, who will kick things off. Hannes, over to you.
Thank you, Emily, and a very good morning to everybody on the webinar this fine sunny morning. For the agenda today, we are going to first cover a small topic on Fujitsu, then move into the HappySignals part, and lastly cover the customer case of Equinor. But to start with a few reminders to our audience about what Fujitsu is doing in ServiceNow. So we have been in the ServiceNow business quite a long time, almost 10 years to date. We are on the Gold Services Partner level currently, moving on to the Global Elite Partner Program when the new year starts for ServiceNow. Currently, we are supporting over $2 billion worth of business on ServiceNow within our own solutions, which we call Trioli for ServiceNow, and of course within our resale business, including HappySignals as well. We are currently having over 8,000 service desk agents in our own instances, servicing around 3,000 customers and 30 million end user contacts per year. So quite a large volume when it comes to our own ServiceNow business. When it comes to the resale business, we've delivered over 800 different ServiceNow projects across Europe. And with the acquisition of Symphony now 2 years ago, Fujitsu has doubled the capacity of their ServiceNow teams in Europe. And with that said, after the short reminder, I will hand over to Pasi to cover the HappySignals part. Pasi, go ahead.
Thank you, Hannes. Yeah, nice to be here today, telling the story about employee experience and happiness, but not just the happiness part, but also the productivity part, which I think is the main point why we are doing all these digital transformation things today. So a little bit on HappySignals. So we basically help IT to really focus on the employee happiness, and with that kind of increase the productivity. So basically, we want to be able to show you where the things are that you should be able to improve. Without understanding how employees feel about the service, it's basically impossible to do continuous improvement and continuous development work. Yeah, some of the customers, like Hannes mentioned, we have the case Equinor presented today. But on top of Equinor, we also measure around 500,000 employees around the globe. So most of our customers are global organizations with employees all over the world. And as Hannes mentioned a little bit on the agenda, so I'll first start with explaining a little bit like what is employee experience really, because of course when we have terms, everybody can think about them and kind of define them differently. So how do we define employee experience? Then we go along like how do you actually measure it? So how do you implement this thing so that you start to understand where are the good things and the bad things? And then how to actually use the data. So after using the data, we'll then also go through the Equinor case. And like Nora mentioned in the beginning, if you have any questions, please write them during the webinar, and then we'll go through them with Hannes in the end. All right, so what is employee experience and what does it really mean in the context of ITSM? Well, last year, it was said that it was the year of employee experience, so really the rise of the whole topic. And nowadays, if you, for example, if some of you guys are going to the Knowledge 19 this year, and you look at the agenda, it's like over half of the sessions are mentioning employee experience, employee experience. Then what is really employee experience, I think, is the question. So how Dennis from Forbes defined it, it's like the next competitive frontier. So if you try to increase, of course, the customer experience, which is the part that actually brings money to the organization, when you're tackling with these really small margins, the place where you can really find the next improvements is from the employee side. So maybe making your employees more productive, more happy, of course, translates directly to how much faster your customers get the service, how good service they get, and ultimately how much they are willing to actually be your customers and pay for your services. But one important thing was also what Dennis was mentioning, that what it is not. So it is not this new and improved HR. So many times somebody hears employee experience and then they start talking, oh, it's employee engagement. No, employee experience is about the service experience. It is not about this, having perks and parties and this employee branding and treating the employees as customers or the engagement part. So really what we are talking today is something totally different. And later last year, there was also a Forrester article saying that if you're not really prioritizing employee experience improvement, then you're doing it wrong. I have the link here, so when you get the material, you can go ahead and read it. But it just shows that the topic has been really rising up in the past year and two. And I think this year, we really see the actual implementations of the employee experience measurement and following up. So I think that one of the best equations or formulas that I've seen is from Jacob Morgan. So he kind of defines it in this three areas, like culture, technology, and the physical space. And I think the culture and the physical space are the ones that we hear the most earlier. It's about having this HR piece, but also having the facilities. So you're having nice offices. We all know the term Google offices. You have your modern HR thing, like how do we compete, how do we use the social media and all that. But actually, what is really important in this equation is of course the technology, because nowadays most of the employees are knowledge workers or they somehow use IT to do their work. And of course, under the IT umbrella, we also have the ITSM and the service desk. So I think this is like a good picture for everybody when you're talking with these other guys as well. So employee experience should be really a corporate-wide endeavor. If HR tells you that it's only HR thing, maybe this is something that you can tell them. So it should be a combination of everything. So how do you manage employee experience? Well, I think we can take the old and trusted infinity curve. So basically, of course, first the employees need to experience the service. Then they need to respond saying that, hey, how do you feel about the service? And then we as the organization, IT, HR, facility, we need to analyze it. And then we need to design the services so that the service experience are improved based on the responses that we get. And as HappySignals, the part where we bring our offering is, of course, the listening part and the analytics part, which actually helps you identify things so that you can do the improvements and then again, do the circle again. So today I'll have a first on this topic, like how should I do it, is three main topics. First is like how to actually get those responses, how to identify development priorities, and then actually how to make it transparent for everyone. And after we go through these practicalities, then I'll show you how to actually use this in practice. So first of all, just measuring CSAT, something like from 1 to 5, and you get a number that it's now our CSAT is 3.7. It basically doesn't really tell you much. Of course, we do have this happiness measuring, which is the traditional CSAT topic, but then we feel that you also need to have this money side of it. And from the money side, when you're talking about internal employees, They are not customers who are buying from you, so they are not bringing money into the corporation, but they are doing productivity work. So the lost productivity is the one that we bring into the equation. And with these two metrics, then you can actually prove your business value. Because nowadays, I think it's more about IT being the cost center and kind of just always cutting down the IT budget. So today I'll show you how to actually justify your IT budget. All right, first we need to get high response rate. Otherwise, if you only have individual feedbacks, you are doing big strategic things, or you actually are not doing them because you know that they are just individual opinions. So first of all, you need to get all the employees involved in this thing. The way we do it is that when you get this response email from ServiceNow, we want to make that email actionable. So not sending additional surveys after everything is solved, but actually when we say that, hey, here is your resolution, please accept by rating your service experience. And with this one, we really get a high response rate from 25 to 55 usually. And this is always sent to all the employees. Otherwise, if you don't always send it, the employees will make this conspiracy theory that you only send it to me when everything went fine, and you didn't send it to me when everything went bad. So you need to always give the opinion, the option for the employees. If they just click on the number, then we already know from ServiceNow classification and categorization that what is the service, what is the country where this user is, what channel did they use. So all this information that we can then use to identify the bottlenecks of the service experience. After clicking on it, we have a predefined survey. So we don't have a survey tool that you have built in ServiceNow where you actually need to do first a project to define and plan the survey. We are not like Survey Monkey where you need to design your survey. So we have everything predefined. So you just deploy it and everything is ready. The additional thing that we ask is like, what should be improved? A factor, because if you go to an airport and you have these smiley faces, you go to the toilet, you come out, you click the red sad face. Why did you click on it? Was it because your flight was delayed or the toilet paper was out? So you need to understand the context. Otherwise, you only have a high level number and you cannot do any actionable things based on that. I'll show it to you in the analytics phase. Then the next thing we ask is actually how much of your work time was lost as an employee. And this really is a feeling, perception-based value. But it also gives as a perception, if the service is really business critical, the perception from the user is that I lost more time. If it is not business critical, the perception is that I didn't really lose any time because it was just an annoyance for me. So using this value is really helpful also defining which are really the business critical services in your organization. Otherwise, you would just be guessing. But with this one, you can actually base it on a real data. Then the next thing is to be able to identify the development priorities. So many times, like if you have the ServiceNow built-in survey tool, you gather the data, somebody has access to the data, somebody maybe creates a report out of it, and you maybe look at it in a monthly meeting. Or it might be that it's for your outsourced service provider, and they report to you once per month what was the number, just because it's written in the contract. So you know that will somebody need to pay money to each other, or was everything okay? But it's not because you're trying to identify the bottlenecks for the users. It is just for your contractual issue and kind of reasons why you are measuring it. So if you really want to identify, then you need to be able to have a real-time analytics for it. And we also have a demo of this online, which you can go and try. But I'll show you the basics how it works. So first of all, we gather all the data into our cloud service. It's a GDPR compliant service, so we don't have any personal information. We only understand the services, the groups, the countries, and that kind of things. So after that, we have a view for you, so you can instantly see what has been the trend in the selected time period, what are the based on volumes, what are the, for example, countries or sub-companies, offerings, services that how they are doing. And you can instantly see everything where we have a set target. So everything above the target is green, below the target is red. So you can instantly see that the red numbers on the most top of the screen, like here Finland or user support, those are the ones that you should focus on, because that's where you have the lowest happiness, but also the highest volumes. So combining those, of course, are that they make the most impact if you try to increase the happiness number. And in the service, you can always go and click something. So if I'm, for example, a country manager in Sweden, and I want to understand that what is the issue in Sweden now. So what should I do? I just click on that one, and then all the data is actually drilled down and filtered based on the country selection. Again, I can click again, see that, okay, email and Canada service, what might be the issue there? And after that, I see that, okay, we are running both Office 365 and Google Apps, and it seems like the people with the Google Apps are having the issues. Then, of course, after this, you most likely know what is happening in the organization, why that is the reason. But the main point here is that now you can transparently show it to everybody in the organization with numbers. So it is not anymore like a gut feeling that I, as a service manager, I feel that it's the Google Apps, or I, as a vendor, feel that you should do this. So now you can sit around the table with your partners, with your vendors, with your internal people, and just look at the numbers and say that, okay, hey, these are neutral data coming from our employees, and we can trust this data because we have enough volume here. So because we had those factors, so we understand what is the reason, we can also identify that, okay, it seems that people are for example, having to explain their case several times. Then I can click and see the comments, what are they really saying about it. But as you can see with all the metadata, we don't really have to start reading individual written feedbacks. We can actually see the high level first. And then when we drill down somewhere, then we can actually see that, okay, there's like 59 comments behind it. So maybe I'll browse through those 59 comments and see is there like a trending theme that what I need to do. But I don't have to read, for example, 1,000 written feedbacks in a week. But I can just quickly see that, okay, where is the main topic, and just go and drill down there. Another interesting approach is, for example, channel development. So understanding, is it an issue with the channel? So like we saw in the previous screen, that people said that they have to explain themselves several times. Then if we look at the channel data, it seems that they are really unhappy with the email channel. So of course, in an email, it is not a form, it's not asking all the right questions in the first time. So you need to have this email ping pong going along with the agent and the employee. So maybe if you would actually move them into the portal channel, they would be much more happier with this. And this is also data that you can use for the employee communication. So as IT, you can say that, hey, we have listened to you, our users, and you have told us that you're having a lot of issues when you are using email to connect to us. So actually now we have this self-service portal where you can actually come, fill in all the right information, and then we can handle your case quicker. So it's really a tool to use in the communication as well. Then, of course, the topic of today was the productivity, and now I have been only talking about happiness. So what happens when you actually try to look at the numbers and everything looks the same? So you look at here that, hey, what should we do with the channels? Like let's say we are comparing email, portal, and chat. Everything is like a digital channel, which are quite similar, because phone, automation, on-site, those are pretty different from each other. So, but it seems like, employees are quite as happy to everything. So how do I justify that we want to close down email and move everything to chat? Because we know that then we can create virtual agents and chatbots and all that stuff. So when I switch into the productivity view, then I can actually start seeing how much time are people wasting when they're using a certain channel. So now you can actually see that, hey, they are losing on average with each IT ticket 3 hours, 25 minutes with email. If they would move the portal, they would almost save 1 hour. And if you would then move to chat, they would kind of save another hour. Now you start considering that if an internal hourly price is like 50 euros per employee, that's almost like 100 euros saved per ticket when you go to chat. And then when you consider that in the chat, you can do all these chatbot things and all that, there's a justification that you can now use. It is something that your CFO can understand. So it's not just that as an IT, we love this new tech and we want this new tech. So you can really turn the discussion into money. So then the last thing, so having it transparent for everyone. So of course, now you know how to identify it, but if nobody's looking at it, then people will just forget it. It's just one KPI somewhere and nobody will come back to it. So we have found best practices. First of all is to actually make it a closing loop for the agents. So having all those positive feedbacks directly feed back to the agents in real time, because 75% of all IT feedback, and this is based on 1 million responses we have in our database, is positive. And usually in IT, you are only bringing the negative feedback to the weekly meeting. So this was the escalation case. This was the bad review we got. But what about if you turn it around? You show that 75% of all the positive things. So it is not just that a gut feeling from my side that this would work, but actually Jeff Rumberg from MetricNet did this kind of investigation. So the agent job satisfaction is of course directly linked to the customer satisfaction. So the more happy you make the agent, the more happy you make the customer, which in this case is the employee. So it's kind of a no-brainer. Why would you didn't do it? So then also for the IT departments, HR departments, and so on, having this available, like having a screen next to the coffee machine or something where you see in real time, what is our employee experience number today? What was it last week? What are the latest comments? How are our services doing? I heard from one CIO that they put this next to coffee machines, and after that, he started to hear like a really nice discussions around. People are getting a coffee, and then look John, look at this comment here. Oh yeah, I know what's that about. I think we should take this to the next development meeting and so on. So it really helps and opens people's eyes when you put these screens onto the corridors and actually make sure that everybody knows what the numbers are. Then the last feature we have is this happiness score. And I used to run internal services at Tieto for 15,000 knowledge workers. And it was very difficult to understand that are we putting enough money to the services, or aren't we putting enough money? What is usually the happiness level? So with our happiness score, we have a benchmark for the ITSM world. So you can actually start to understand where are we, how are we correlating to other companies? And that's really powerful when you start showing, for example, that should we take on a new channel? Even if you wouldn't have a chat channel, for example, you can show from a benchmark that usually people are this happy for the chat. So you can also, again, use it to justify how well you're doing or what you should do in the development. All right, to recap. So to actually do it, you need to get high response rates, identify where the development things are, and then just make it transparent for everyone. So next would be to show you a few examples, and then I'll let Hannes go through the Equinor case. All right, so measuring digital transformation. So what does it really mean? From our point of view, it of course means that you have a continuous measurement. You are doing these projects so that the employee experience would be going up. Because of course, why else would you do one IT project? It should have a goal. And why does every project have their different KPIs and different metrics? Why don't you just have company-wide initiative that we want the employee happiness to go up? And this is actually a real case. So this is a customer of us. And what happened to the productivity trend? So this is a trend that we have seen from all the data we have, that always when the happiness goes up, the productivity loss is going down. And it's usually like if you go in this net promoter score thing, if you go 10 points up, it's almost like 1 hour in the productivity side. And also as a partner, wouldn't this be something that it would be nice to have a goal with the customer, that actually why we are doing is that we want to make your employees more productive. So few examples. So one case where this is really useful is when you are saying, for example, changing the outsourced service provider, because if you have your own measurement, so you have the same measurement for the old provider and the new provider, you can actually show what the level was before we made the change, and then you can just focus with the new provider, because of course there will be issues. People have to learn new things. There will be let's say a queue of tickets from the old provider and all that kind of things. But at least everybody can agree that, hey, the level was here before we switch over. So that is where we should be able to get back. And this customer here, this is actually a common customer we have with Fujitsu. They were actually able to get up to the level after a few months. But another customer, they actually brought in the provider before they did the switch and show that this is what we measure. We care about only this employee experience. And you can see that there was only this 1 week of little dip, but otherwise they were able to continue. So they had this war room with the real-time data, and the employees probably didn't notice anything. Another effect when you're thinking about the technical things, like how do I justify machine learning and AI, for example? Well, a trend that we have found from the data is that when you are having these reassignment counts, so you're bouncing the ticket from one team to another, it seems like the happiness is always going down. And this is like a textbook case with, I would say, 80% of our customers. And of course, the productivity is the productivity loss is going up at the same time. When you start putting euros on top of this, what does it cost, this one bounce of the ticket? You can start to make a business case. And then let's say that, hey, I want to leverage the virtual intelligence or the agent intelligence of the new ServiceNow. So what about if we figure out on the second hop, what services are included on this one? Could we do something so that we could reduce those hops? So in this formula, we found that, okay, what if every third ticket, so 30% of the tickets, we would be able to auto-assign directly to the right team and not have these 2 jumps or 2 reassignments. Then this would be the annual case. And this is when you actually have like the hourly price would be like 50 euros an hour. And this is actually actual customer case. So you can see the ticket volumes for this customer here. So with this kind of calculation, it starts to make sense that, hey, this is why we need the agent intelligence. This is how we justify the investment for it. So hopefully this kind of opens your eyes to the productivity side of things. Of course, we can also find things from feedbacks. For example, this, how do we automate the account locked? What if we do an automated password reset feature? This is a case where we could find that, hey, you could save almost $500,000 by just automating that one, because you are saving so much on the productivity. I'll send you the slides so you can have a proper look at it later. Yeah, but then also something that you might miss if you just look at the bad things is that if there is a service where people are too happy, so you have a lot of volume, but they are really happy about it, then isn't that something that you should actually automate? So for example, here you can see that the productivity loss is only 11 minutes, but this is happening really often. So people are doing some changes on their accounts. So you might miss this, but if we analyze a little bit deeper, so it seems like most of this, and this is actually real customer data, so most of it was coming through a phone, and that's a pretty expensive channel, right? And where does the 11 minutes come from? So we actually found that people say when they're using the phone that the speed of service is the most annoying thing. And then you start reading the comments, say that it took 15 minutes to get through. So if people are queuing 10 minutes, that's why they are losing 11 minutes when they want to reset their password. So what if you would save that 10 minutes, you would create an automated thing, and you would actually free up the channel. So these are really like things where you can take the analysis when you have this experience data available. All right, but then well, I'm happy to come back to the questions later, so please write them down. So, but now I'll let Hannes go on with the Equinor case.
Thank you, Pasi. And this is really powerful stuff. So just in between here, if you want to learn more, feel free to reach out to me or Pasi around these customer cases and how we can help you in your digital transformation. But all right, moving from a, I don't want to say sales pitch, but a product presentation, solution presentation, to a real world example. And today we're talking about a company called Equinor. So people who do not know Equinor, I think the most or the more familiar name to Equinor would be Statoil. They had a recent name change in their business, so nowadays they're known as Equinor. And Equinor is a Norwegian company, one of the largest companies in the world in natural resources and energy production. A few volumes or key metrics of Equinor. So Equinor is a big company, 40,000 users and over 6,000 support people supporting that. I'll get to that figure later, why the 6,000 is that high. If you look at the IT side or the service management side, they have over 600 frame agreements with over 1,200 different vendors. So a lot of different agreements and vendors to manage. And I think the most important one in light of this webinar today is the bottom point here, that the elements or the channels that Equinor receives requests is 47% through portal, 24% through phone, and then via new channels, chat, 13%. But in overall, they get over 10,000 user feedbacks. 96% are solved without reopening, so without a ticket bounce. And they are collaborating through a subtask feature of ServiceNow, over 10,000 of those done on a monthly basis. And if you look at the overall volume of all of the requests and errors and incidents coming in, it's over 62,000 a month. So Equinor has been in the forefront of what we call enterprise service management. They have had a service management strategy in their shared services department for very many years. So they apply the same logic, the same tooling, the same processes, and the same service management function to all of these functions listed here. So in finance, in HR, in the management operation systems, in service management in together or in total, in safety and sustainability, in information technology department, real estate and facility management, and then project resources and deliveries. And service management is used across all service providers in Equinor, including the exploration business, drilling and well business, development, production, etc., etc. So Equinor has been in the forefront of enterprise service management for very many years, and this strategy has been with them for a long time. If we look at Equinor's strategic priorities coming to 2020, so they are working in a three-pillar framework. So very much emphasis is put on future ways of working, so improving the legacy side of things, improving the user experience side of things, and also accelerating that into the digital transformation, or accelerating digital transformation with those two bullets mentioned. And of course, being in the drilling business, they always need to be safe, so worker safety is a key priority for them. And the service-minded part, as mentioned in the ESM scope. So service-minded enterprise service management function, that is what the Equinor Global Business Services is. A few words in Equinor's words around HappySignals. So the next slide will detail in short that what is their HappySignals journey. But when Equinor speaks about HappySignals, they are using HappySignals to measure the user happiness. It is based, as Pasi mentioned, on the Net Promoter Score methodology. It's fully built into ServiceNow, so it's a cloud solution. And it's already connected to several of their vendors, with Fujitsu being one of those. And it gathers metadata, ticket details, as Pasi just mentioned in the few previous slides. Next slide, please. So Pasi also showed you this one, but this is how Equinor is using it. So using the out-of-the-box features of rating the ticket from 1 to 10, where 10 is of course awesome, 1 is not good. The factors why the customers are happy or not happy, the mood, whether they are negative, neutral, positive, or meaning basically if they are likely to talk about this service to other colleagues or talk badly about this service to another colleague. Lost work time, as mentioned, is an important factor in HappySignals, measuring it and basically giving the user's voice on how frustrated he or she is with the service and how many minutes or hours they are losing based on the fact that it's not working. Then, of course, they gather textual feedback, and something that Pasi did not mention in much detail is the support profiling. So Equinor's users have been profiled or categorized into 4 different categories: doer, prioritizer, supported, or trier. And that gives an analysis framework when we measure the customer experience of what is that person likely to say, or how does he behave in normal or other circumstances when it comes to reporting tickets or complaining about services. So that's a very important factor in HappySignals as well. Equinor started their HappySignals journey in March of 2018, so last year. And the reason they chose it is a market standard solution, and it's fully integrated and built into ServiceNow. And currently they have had 80,000 user feedbacks, and 10,000 of those are outside the scope of global business services. And as Pasi mentioned as well, so 25 to 50% is the average return rate or response rate. Equinor is seeing on the level of 20 to 25%. So that is in par with what Pasi was just presenting. Data on the user feedback can be analyzed in many different levels, as explained also previously. So we can tailor the data to look at the segments or business areas, how our services are structured, how our teams are structured, how our vendors are doing their services, etc., etc. And in addition to HappySignals, Equinor is implementing a data lake from Azure, feeding data from ServiceNow, HappySignals, SAP, AD, and etc., etc. And experience of the service with HappySignals is a key input, is now an important KPI on all levels of GPS. So I will come back to that on the next following slides, on how do we use the data of HappySignals to drive change. First off, an example. So kind of like Pasi stated, but with real-world metrics from Equinor's environment. So if we look at overall positivity score of a 71 on the surface of the end user IT equipment order, looks good, probably nothing worth to dig into. But if we drill down a bit deeper, we're seeing that overall other end user IT equipment orders are okay, but the mobile phone ordering or the mobile phone subscription ordering in Norway especially seems to be not that good. So we can then categorize or look at the data based on the profiles that I just mentioned. So a lot of the guys who are unhappy with it, or not unhappy, but not as happy as the other services, are of a doer category. So they try to do themselves, and either they succeed or they fail. And then we can also look at the negative or positive or neutral feedback on how do these particular elements in this end user IT equipment ordering service, how do these stack up? So 43%, for example, are saying that ticket was not solved in the first at all. So that is something that should be looked into. And all of this data, different viewpoints, categorizations, enables Equinor to target and improve with a target in mind. So that is very important. Benchmarking, as mentioned by Pasi as well. So the global benchmarking is available to all HappySignals customers, and in Equinor's case, they are slightly below the benchmark for happiness, but slightly better when it comes to lost work time. And once again, we can drill into that via channel method, via country method, via the user profiling method, or in the overall benchmarking method. So how does Equinor then drive or use this data in order to improve the operations? So of course the goal is to set great user experiences. That is also based on the Forrester and Gartner researches that was just showcased. One of the key topics or key takeaways is that the user is always right, whether the score is negative or positive. So never start to argue with the user on this score or the feedback volume. Focus on trends, not targets. So as Pasi also mentioned in these anonymized examples, the trending is very important. So if you are guiding a ship as large as Equinor, you cannot do small changes and expect a result immediately. You need to estimate or analyze that over time and make the changes on a larger scale. Learn why positives and negatives occur. So learn from the mistakes, learn from what we did right. And then improvement actions. They should be established and completed both on a personal level and on a service level, so that the actual user who is unhappy or happy will actually know that we are doing something in order to make the service better. A couple of examples still more. So Equinor looks at the happiness score for a certain service, and they identify that a number of cases all have low ratings. They analyze the feedback related to these scores and then compare that to the positive feedback in order to understand that what they are doing in good or bad, and in some cases to see if there are typical cases where there is a negative experience. The end result of all of these data analyses can be training, changing the ways that Equinor works, service designing or user experience designing, tool changes, or then other improvements. And last but not least is documenting the improvement proposals, setting a responsible person or a team, and setting a time frame for completion. So those are the few examples that Equinor is actually using HappySignals data in order to drive the change and making a better service function for their employees. And with that said, that was the case Equinor briefly presented. If you want to know more about Equinor, we are happy to discuss or have you talk to them directly. Or if you want to know about HappySignals or Fujitsu services around it, please feel free to contact. But I think now it's time for questions. Emily, do we have any questions on the line?
Thank you, Hannes. Yes, we have received a few questions. The first one is, when should I start measuring this?
Okay, do you want Hannes me to take that one?
Yeah, Pasi, I think it's you, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, this is a quite common question we hear, and it's many times like, okay, yeah, this is really interesting, but we don't want to start measuring now because we are doing this project now. So let's start to do it when we are ready with that one. But as you saw, the trend is really the key point, and understanding where you are today is actually the way you can show the value of the things that you is now ongoing. So in our opinion, you should start immediately before you actually make these other improvements, because at least you start to see what it is. And sometimes measuring is felt like it's some kind of a negative thing, that okay, now somebody's measuring and then I need to get the score, you know, as good as possible. But the reality is that even if you're not measuring, the employees already have an experience. You just don't know what it is. So you should look at it in a way that we need to understand what it is today, so that the things that we are doing, I mean, some things you do, you feel that it might be a good thing, but then the results show you something else. So then you learn. So then the next thing you do, then you actually might do it better. So it is really just opening your eyes just not measuring doesn't mean that the employees are not experienced the services today. So maybe that's my answer. I don't know, Hannes, if you have something to add. How do you see it?
Nothing to add. I think your one example of the anonymized customer where they're changing the service provider or outsourcing service provider is a good testament to your answer. Is that if they wouldn't have had the data to show that the happiness level was at this level with the existing provider, and with the new provider we are targeting this level, that the kind of business case element would have made no sense. So yeah, I fully agree with the answer.
Yeah, good.
Thank you. The next one is, how much work is it to implement?
Okay, I can take that one, Pasi, if
sure.
it's okay.
Yeah.
So typically, HappySignals is plug and play. So when it comes to an implementation project, we are talking about more hours than days. So looking at a one or a 2 day stint, I think the main issue in implementations comes from training the solution, learning your organizations to use it, and then of course helping you how to digest or analyze the data and use the data to drive your digital transformation or your change management for that matter. But when it comes to the actual implementations, it's just plug and play. It's a few hours, then using it and getting the benefits of it. That is something that we need to discuss together and learn the ropes with you.
Yeah, and maybe that's something that I could add, that always with every license, the first kind of analysis workshop where we kind of teach you how to read the data, and we also look at it. So it's usually a case where there would be like a Fujitsu person, the customer person, persons, and then we are like the neutral party, just showing you both that, hey, we saw with our neutral eyes that this is like a trend that we have seen with other customers, and this is maybe the numbers that you should want to look next. And actually there was a fun story with I was in a customer case. It was actually Fujitsu and one customer, and I was just going through the data, and suddenly the customer was saying to the Fujitsu person that, now I believe you. And the topic was that I was showing with the numbers that you should maybe consider increasing the portal usage and not use the email so much. So the customer had already had the discussion with the partner. Partner has suggested this, but they just somehow weren't in agreement. But then showing with the neutral data and just showing it like this is how you use it, they were able to kind of both agree that, yeah, this is what we need to do next. So yeah, I agree. The technical implementation is just that's the easy part.
Thank you to both. The last question is, what languages are supported?
All right. So of course on the ServiceNow part, that is mainly the ServiceNow elements that get translated with ServiceNow. If you're using ServiceNow with another language, are of course translated. The main analytics tool is in English, but then on the surveying part, which goes to the employees, we have around I would say over 25 languages currently. So all the EMEA languages from Asia, Russia, Chinese, all that kind of things are included. And if a language is missing, we will add that translation just through a request.
Yeah, and to add to that, Pasi, so Fujitsu also has developed technologies on top of ServiceNow to do translations. So we have our own solutions called Translate Now, which we're happy to talk about in a separate scenario, not the topic of today's webinar. But yes.
Perfect. And yeah, also maybe to add is of course that the language you show to the end user is the language that they will then write the feedback. So considering that, but I guess that's like a common knowledge to everybody who's already running a service desk. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you for having this webinar with us today. This was all that we had for you today. We hope that you found this session useful. As already mentioned in the beginning, you will receive an email with the link to the presentation as well as the recording for you to share with your colleagues. If you want to get in touch with us regarding HappySignals, please feel free to contact any of us both in HappySignals and Fujitsu. We frequently host webinars related to the ServiceNow platform, so make sure you follow us on LinkedIn to get the updates or visit our website where you can sign up for our newsletter. I will end this webinar by wishing you a great afternoon. Thank you all.